Welcome to Dodgers Dogs. As part of the Dodgers Daily Network, Dodgers Down on the Farm Lunch with the Prospects. We are here with the AAA pitching coach, Dave Anderson. Dave, we tried this the first time. I had a glitch in the electricity. As it was saving, everything went off. I lost it, so you are so kind to come back in.
Appreciate you having me back, Casey. No problem.
By the way, it's like, have you ever been fishing and you had the fish get off the hook and you're like, dude, that was like 11 pounds. That was the biggest fish of the day, right? That was that interview. I mean, it's like, that was the best interview we ever did, and we lost the whole thing, right?
That's all right. We'll see if we can redo it.
Okay, let's dive right in. And a very successful year. You had a lot of great talent to work with. You had a lot of veterans that came back to you, like Blake Trinan, Tyler Glasnow, Roki Sasaki, guys like that. At the end, you had Kyle Hurt, but let's dive in right away with Roki Sasaki, some of the things you saw at the end. What are some things that he did? When he started, he was like 92, 93. He's like, oh, well, I guess this is going to be a next year thing. Next thing you know, he's the closer on a World Series championship team. Take us through his entire process.
Yeah, that was just one of the cooler transitions and just periods of development I've seen firsthand from a guy, especially to do it at that level and go display the adjustments he made in the big leagues, in the playoffs, closing games. But when he came and started rehabbing with us, he started as a starting pitcher for the first 5 rehab outings we had. And then, he'd make his start on Tuesday. He'd fly back to either Arizona or LA, work with either the LA-based big league crew or the Arizona crew. And we'd come back, see him the next week, and we'd start to see the progress he was making. And then, once he shifted to the bullpen, I think his last start was against Memphis. And he came out, first inning was 99 to 101. Yeah. And we sat down in the tunnel in between innings, and that was the first time I really saw him smile. Like, he felt it. Yeah. So, it's this give and take of, I think there was a confidence and a conviction piece, and there was a delivery piece, and both of them fed each other. So once he started to get the lower half repatterned to the way that it was, 2 years prior when we saw him in the World Baseball Classic, and things started to sync up physically, that's when the conviction and the confidence mentally kicked in for him. So, both of them went hand in hand, and there was a piece that both of them played, and he took off and didn't look back, to his credit.
Can you take us through the communication between you and Rob Hill, all the guys in Arizona, and then whenever he brought it back to Oklahoma City?
Absolutely. So that was the communication was run really well. So, he would throw on Tuesday. I would get notes to Rob, to Mark, to Connor, that group of what we were seeing. We would get feedback when he came back. This is what we worked on this week. Keep an eye out for these sorts of things. And it was really just like a test retest program, because they would come up with the program, they'd run the drills in between, and then I would see it firsthand in the game. So we got to see the progress week to week, which was a really cool lens to have.
100%. And so that splitter, they say it may be the best splitter in baseball because it has absolutely no spin on it. Can you take us through that splitter and what makes that pitch so effective?
Yeah, there's not many guys that can do that with a baseball in the world, especially at that velocity. He's ripping that splitter 87 to 90 miles an hour, and it's 300 to 500 spin. It's essentially a fork ball. Yeah. Right. So, the spin of it is not your traditional splitter spin either. It's incredibly unique. It's incredibly difficult. It holds its line for a really long time, and it has a ton of teeth at the plate. And, sometimes it's the straight downer. Sometimes he runs it with some sink, and sometimes he actually cuts it with some drop to it. So it's a very tough pitch to have to handle, especially if you have to respect 100 miles an hour in the zone.
Let's talk about your rehab guys. Tyler Glasnow, Blake Trinan. I guess Roki Sasaki was a rehab too. So talk about what it was like working with those guys. I know early on Tyler Glasnow was like pulling his slider, and he wasn't necessarily maybe in the zone as much. But can you talk about their process and where a guy like you, a AAA pitching coach, a major league guy in rehab, what is your role in this situation?
Yeah, a lot of that role is support. Those guys, when they come down in rehab and they have years of experience like Blake does, like Tyler does, those guys know what they need. They know what their routine is, and you're basically evolving and adapting to what their needs are. So you'll sit down when they get there. What do you need? What are you looking for? What have you been working on? And they generally have a pretty good idea in tune to their program, their own delivery, the adjustments they need to make, and you just help them along with it as they need. Versus some of the younger guys, their process is still evolving a lot of times. So you're a little bit more proactive in what you're doing in those areas. Not that if you don't see something with those guys, you don't mention it, but they're so bought into their routine and so locked into what they do. You're just there to support that.
Okay, let's dive into Bobby Miller. Let's talk about his year this year. There was not good, then there was really good, and then there was frustrating. I mean, I think that those are the three categories, because even if you look, once he became a reliever, he had a really great period. But then he had like 3 or 4 outings to where he would have like 2 outs, 2 strikes on a hitter, and a guy would hit like a 48-mile-an-hour duck fart and score 2 runs. And it just, from a box score perspective, it didn't look great, but there was a lot of process to it that was. So can you take us through the process of Bobby Miller, where he's at right now?
Yeah, I give Bobby all the credit in the world, because he had a lot of reasons to not throw in the towel, but he could have slacked off. He could have thrown a pity party, poor me, and he never did any of that. He was motivated, took every lump, stood back up, threw a punch back, and, it was a battle. And I think it's important that he understands that this isn't a lost year. He learned a lot. We found a lot of things that we're confident about moving into next year. And the fact that he never stood back to think this was a lost year is what allowed him to come out with the progress that he had, that we hope puts together, the potential season in 2026 that we know he's capable of.
Can you take us through maybe his sequencing and how that's evolved over the years, and where maybe the best sequencing for him right now is at?
Absolutely. He's an interesting one, because 2023, he goes up as a rookie, has a really, really good year. Had some knee issues last year, took his lumps a little bit. And then it's just been getting back to, there's an important balance between at this level and when guys get older in their career. It's like the two defining pieces with AAA to the big leagues. What's that final adjustment? And then once you've been in the big leagues for a while, what keeps you there? Because the identity of who you are and what you do is always going to be there. It's always going to be what carries you through things. And then understanding at the same time, what made you successful in the past isn't always what's going to make you successful in the future. So balancing those two pieces while keeping the identity the same is kind of where the magic sauce is at. And I think a lot of it for Bobby is just getting back to the identity of the type of pitcher that he is. His weapons in the front to back arsenal between the fastball, whether it's the 2 or the 4, the changeup, the curveball, and supplementing with the other things. It's not reinventing the wheel in a lot of ways. It's getting back to what he did well with a couple new added weapons that he has between the cutter and the way he's using the breaking ball.
So his front to back is the curveball and not the changeup?
Both of them can serve that purpose, change of pace, moving the plate forward and backward on hitters. Yeah.
So he has this big arsenal, but he's so talented. So it's like, okay, well, the guy can throw it 101, so we don't want to lose the power aspect to him. But then he also has like 17 pitches. So there's an execution piece there in terms of having a big arsenal. Is that always a fight? Like, hey, maybe we're doing too much here. Maybe we just need to, he's good enough just to maybe simplify it down to a couple of pitches that he can execute.
Absolutely. And that's kind of that piece I alluded to earlier. For me, the identity that he has to, and he has bought into and has always made him good, is the changeup. So whatever surrounding pieces you or he wants to adjust or we want to adjust, it doesn't take away from, this is at the core how you get outs and how you push hitters forward in counts. The fastball becomes explosive when he's relying on the changeup as a weapon. When guys have to respect the changeup, now all of a sudden the fastball plays a lot better.
Regardless if it's 4 or 2 is what you're saying. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And a lot of things too simplified for him when he's executing those 3 pitches really, really well. They're all coming out of the same tunnel. So just simplifying his approach to hitters. And he put together a really impressive stretch. He faced 1 over the minimum in his first 8 innings coming out of the pen. So there were a lot of positives, and I think just continuing to bake in the things we found success with and refine the rest of it could put him in a really good spot going into next year.
Kind of the offensive, the pitching situation of Austin Gauthier, who just kind of went back to, hey, this is what has always made me good. This is what I'm going to do, and let's look at it from that perspective. Okay, Landon Knack had kind of an up and down year. He's kind of not in the same boat in the Bobby Miller in the sense that he has to be a guy that executes. He's a guy that's 92, 93, 94. No matter what, he has to throw all 4 pitches. They all 4 have to be for a strike. So there were some execution situations that weren't perfect for here this year. I would imagine that if you asked him, this wasn't the exact year he was looking for, but where are we at with Landon Knack?
We're really, really encouraged. He finished the AAA season. His last 3 starts, he combined 16 innings. I forget if it was 1 or 2 runs. And then he actually went up as a length option behind Kirsch in his last start in Seattle and took down, I think it was 3 shutout.
Yeah.
So, he finished on a really strong note. There were delivery pieces that he had to work through at times. There was definitely some arsenal pieces that he had to work through at times, some of them tied to the delivery. And, each thing we went through to get to the final product we were at, we wished we didn't have to go through.
Yes.
But we were better for going through it.
Yep.
And he's another one. He took his lumps. He kept on going. And the note that he finished the season on, he's really confident going into the offseason that he's currently having right now.
So Landon Knack, Bobby Miller, neither one of them are afraid to show their emotions on their sleeve, right? Is that something as a pitching coach that you have to monitor, or do you just let them go?
No, those guys, it's very rare that it's used as a detriment to them. A lot of them, whether it's a flush mechanism, whether it's something getting them to the next level that they need to get to execute the pitch in front of them, they use it the right way. And, it's something for Bobby specifically that I find incredibly important. And you can see the look in his eyes, similar to, Roki went through it. He had a different look in his eye when he finished up with us. And when Bobby hits that level, it's another gear. And Landon just carrying himself with confidence, you can start to see he started to believe in the things that he was doing. He started to feel like himself again, and he started to move like himself a lot more consistently through each outing that he finished the season with, which was encouraging.
Can you take us through the adjustments that you made with Will Klein that got him to the position to be able to be the folklore hero that he is for the Dodgers organization?
Absolutely. Will is a special talent. There's nothing that he throws that isn't above average to borderline plus. Fastball, ride, cut, just pure power, banger of a curveball. I'd say a plus curveball. Yeah. We refined the cutter a little bit when he got here, and he's pretty adept at making adjustments on the outside of the baseball. So now all of a sudden he had this 95-mile-an-hour cutter to help him neutralize left. Yeah. He goes up, does pretty well. And Connor McGinnis showed him a slider grip and came back down and said, hey, let me know what you think about this. And he comes down and he's ripping 90-mile-an-hour sweepers. So it's like all of a sudden you have 2+ breaking balls, a good cutter, and a power heater. All the tools are right there. We just had to get him in the zone a little bit more, and that's no secret. He knew it. And I think some of the pieces that we found with him were just delivery checkpoints. For him, the tempo is incredibly important, but him getting depth on his backside is what allows him to maintain direction as he's working over the front side. If he doesn't get the depth, you'll see just an early extension move, and there's their arm side flyer to the glove side pull yank. And it's just keeping that line. It's a little bit different mechanism that seemed to help him. But, he's got all the stuff in the world. Once he made that adjustment, he actually shrunk his overall miss from about 13 inches average east-west to about 7 inches. So all of his stuff just over the plate, it forces guys to have swing decisions early and often, because that's not a guy you want to get behind 2 strikes with.
Reminds me of a hitter that pops the ball up like to second base, a right-handed hitter, or right field. Then his other mistake is, or his other miss is like rolling over a ground ball to shortstop. Well, they're the same thing. It's like the same mistake. It's just one's early and one's late. That sounds like what you're saying about Will Klein.
No doubt. And for him, the encouraging piece is it's not really something that's an internal focus. He feels when he gets his depth, and then it's just forward. So it's almost like the key to the ignition for him.
A couple of Rule 5 eligible pitchers that were really, really good, certainly at times. I know that T-Boo, Jose Rodriguez, he had a very, very tough transition from AA to AAA Oklahoma City. He recovered from that first month or so. Maybe the best changeup in the system, maybe the best changeup in minor league baseball. It is an incredible pitch. It's definitely a go-to for him. And then Sam Carlson, the two-seam cutter mix. Those 2 guys both eligible for the Rule 5 draft. Very impressive young men.
Absolutely. Like we talked about in the last one, you bring up these guys and it's like, man, I'm proud of him. Man, I'm proud of him. All these guys, it's easy to be proud of the work that these guys put in. And, it's really cool when you start to see them start to reap the benefits and gain momentum as a team, as a pitching staff, and as an individual. So you can start to see these guys really mature into their roles. T-Boo was an especially cool one for me. Dominated Double-A with Duran and Vasky. He comes up and gets punched in the mouth pretty hard.
Yes.
Makes an adjustment. There were a couple delivery pieces that were very similar to things we dealt with in the past with him. Quick adjustment there. Goes on an absolute tear. Hitters make an adjustment to him, gets punched in the mouth, and he makes the adjustment back. And each time he's starting to realize the demands of pitching at these higher levels and the ability to move counts in the zone are so important. But it's like hitters got to the point with him that they were not going to swing at the changeup until they had to.
Right.
So pitches that are plus pitches, strike to ball, they're just spitting on. Yeah. Then he made the adjustment, two pieces to that. If it's a righty, that's a two-seam opportunity that you can steal. As a lefty, you can rip the four-seam to move the count, or we just flood the zone with the changeup. So we had a lot of options to navigate what hitters were doing to him, and it was cool to see him finish on a strong note.
Yeah, it sounded like it sounds complicated, but to me, it sounds like you simplified. Okay, yeah, we have this elite changeup, but here's the strategies of actually when you use it. Yeah, you both have a four-seam and a two-seam, which can be complicated because there's a lot of stuff, but here's the simplified aspect of when you're actually going to use it and the strategy behind it. And Tibu seems like a guy that you don't just tell him what to do. You need to explain to him why it makes sense. And then once he understands why it makes sense, that's, I think, when you get his best execution. Would that be correct?
For sure. And Tibu's one that simplification's good. He's incredibly intelligent.
Yeah.
After his outing, he's going to be the first person that watches the whole thing back.
Yeah.
You just finish 10 minutes after the game and he's popping his head in with a question. What'd you have on that sequence? What'd you have on that pitch? So he's so bought in and aware to what he's doing that I think simplifying some of those things actually helps him take it into the game a lot more. And it's like once he started to break it down, the ways that he gets swings on the changeup at this level is either end zone, swing count where you can get your strike to ball, or we start to get into that leverage of, okay, if I establish a fastball line here, if I start the changeup off the same line, I'm going to get an offer here. So it's starting to layer in how we present pitches to get guys to expand the zone more than just, all right, I'm just throwing a nasty pitch.
Yeah. If a fight broke out or if I needed somebody to be in the foxhole with, Sam Carlson's the first one I'm getting in with.
Yeah, Sammy's a dog. He took the ball and he posted the entire year, no matter what he was dealing with. He went out there and he went on an absolute tear after the All-Star break. It was just in different ways. This is what the most impressive part to me was that he found ways to put up zeros. In different ways. Sometimes it was the two-seam. Sometimes it was the cutter. Sometimes it was actually the sweeper. And he responded to the situations in front of him extremely well. He made a ton of progress with the sweeper this year, started to land it in zone at a rate he's never been comfortable or been able to do before, which really unlocked some things for him. The cutter is a standalone pitch versus right and left. The angles he creates with it are outlier, extremely flat, hard, and it just looks like to the eye, it almost looks like it's rising up into you as a lefty. But when you can start to layer in that you have to respect an off-speed option in zone and sweeper, it becomes a pretty tough at bat.
Yeah. Was there anything that Robo did that surprised you this year? Whenever you saw him in the World Series and you saw the confrontation they had, anything that he did that surprised you at all?
Not at all. One of the things about Robo, and this is one of the reasons it lined up that way, but we were really happy in the 2023 Midwest League Championship. He was lined up for game 2. Yeah. And, of course you want to be able to throw him out wherever you want. The day's lined up for game 2. And I thought about it, I was like, I actually love it because there's nobody else we'd want on the mound in the event that we're down in an elimination game. He lives for those moments. He does. He made a pretty big delivery adjustment this year that helped him out a lot. He made some adjustments to bring the two-seam back into the fold, started to rely a little bit more on the cutter versus right, made some adjustments with the approach with the slider, setting a velo floor that, just kind of leverages. He has shorter extension, but he's leveraging that to his advantage in certain ways now with a better understanding of how he needs to go about his arsenal. And, he made these adjustments with full confidence and went out there each day and proved it again. And just seeing him get the opportunity, much less the result in the World Series, was really, really cool.
So I've heard you say many different times, Hey, the front to back that Justin Wrobleski put into his sequencing this year was a game changer for him. Can you explain that?
Yeah, for him, he has the curveball. He's toyed around with a couple of variations of the changeup. So his ability to change speeds is incredibly important. But I think some of the things he did with the delivery really helped the approach angles start to get a little more outlier so he could play a north-south game. And then getting back to being able to flood a couple two seams early, a couple cutters early, goes back to, not to get too deep into it, but he's able to present 3 fastball shapes at average to above average fastball velos with 3 different lines coming off the same start line. So the 2 things that does is it helps him get into count safely off the barrel. And when you've shown these, this also plays up off of it. So he kind of diversified the way he can use variations of fastballs. And then he also started to uptick the slider, not just usage, but velo, which allows it to hold its line longer for a guy with shorter extension. So, he put in the work day in and day out, no matter where he was. And it was really cool because he trusted the process the whole time. And then the results he put in, everyone around him started to trust him and his process as well. So that was cool to witness.
I think what I'm hearing you say is that through adding some raw stuff in terms of some movement and then also advanced sequencing, he created more of a margin for error for himself.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So
100%.
I think a guy that could really be aided by that would be a guy, Edgardo Henriquez. Edgardo Henriquez, we know he can throw at 104, this and that, but then he hasn't reached the ceiling at the major league level for this or that. Can you kind of take us through that?
I think with Edgardo, it's important to realize his age, and not just his age as a human, his pitching age. He came to the Dodgers as a catcher, and then I had him in rookie ball in 2021, and it was his first real season pitching stateside. And then to think about that, it's like, all right, you have 5-6 years of pitching under your belt, and you're pitching in the World Series. It's pretty impressive. But agreed, there's a lot more untapped with him. I think he just continues to iron out consistency with the breaking ball. And once you see the breaking ball click for him consistently day in, day out, that this is a staple of my arsenal, I think you're going to see him take off because, he's got the 2-seam, he's got the 4-seam, he's got the cutter. He has power options. He's athletic. He has the ability to fill the zone up. Everything's there for him. It's just got to be, the ingredients put together on his end, and he's close.
Is he kind of in between, okay, what do I want to hang my hat on in terms of sequencing that I know I can just reach bat no matter what the count and get guys out with, or do I want to be a little bit more tricky? Is he kind of in between that, or is that just something I'm seeing and making up?
I personally don't think he's in between that. I think he's learning that.
Okay,
so,
very good. Great way to put it.
He's starting to understand, okay, in this moment, this is what I have in this moment. This is what I go with versus one is a time that I can try and get something going that I might not have right now in this outing. Because there's times for both, and both are important. And I think he's starting to piece that together. You can see him start to get confidence. The innings he took down in the 18-inning game was incredible to watch.
Yeah.
So it's there. Yeah. It's there.
Yeah, it just feels like whenever he gets into, kind of like the Will Klein deal, he gets into a crunch time, he's like, okay, well, I need to make sure that they don't hit this ball. So it's like all strike the ball stuff, and then major league hitters don't swing at it. And then next thing you know, you're behind the count. Now, even as good of his fastball is, he's behind the count, and that's not a good thing. It just kind of seems like that's a cycle with him a little bit.
No doubt. And you can take that to any pitcher in professional baseball. Count control is king. And stuff is what allows you to navigate more margin for error when you're not in favorable count control positions. But at the end of the day, count control, huge.
Absolutely. Okay, another guy, you talk about huge. Ronin Kopp, man, this dude, hey, when he is in the zone, of course, the execution piece has to become major league caliber at some point for him to be the pitcher that he's capable of being. But there's nobody with better raw stuff in terms of here it comes, you can't hit it, I don't care what. And his slider, I swear to God, I sit behind it and I'm like, okay, well, that's a cutter. He's like, no, I throw a slider. That's it. It's a crazy pitch, his slider is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a true plus slider versus both left and right. And some of the things that he's bought into and we feel really confident that he understands now is the angle he creates out of hand. It's kind of the opposite of the Sammy Carlson effect, the low slot, the low vertical approach angle. He's leveraging the opposite. So you've got about a 6'5" release height, and it looks like it's coming from the clouds. So we essentially scrap the thoughts of killing vert with the slider and lean into powering it downhill, because the angle out of hand is going to take care of the visual of depth for the hitter, which allows him to throttle that thing in that 91, 93 range. It actually cracks me up because a lot of the boards we play at, and OKC's does it. It tags fastball sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't. You went. That's way more aggressive. I went a cutter at least. You're saying fastball. Wow.
It tags fastball sometimes.
Golly, that's incredible. And then also, I was talking with you. Some guys, the harder they throw their slider, the more spin they get. The less it moves because it becomes more like a bullet shape. And then other guys, the harder they throw it, the more it spins, just depending on each player. So, can you take us through that process with Ronin Kopp?
Yeah, if you were to think about the way Ronin approaches his slider, it's more of a gyro component.
Yes.
So for guys that have the gyro sliders, maintaining spin rate above a certain threshold is incredibly important for the visual. And beyond the visual, it just delays when the actual movement of the pitch begins.
Yeah.
So for
more
him,
late movement versus big movement is what you're saying.
Exactly. The measurement's going to be the same.
Yeah.
But the visual of it is going to be entirely different.
Exactly.
And we can see some of the things with Ronin. He's gotten to the point now that he can feel when he gets too far around the ball, which is when you're going to see more of side spin come in. So there's going to be a little bit more depth, a little bit more sweep. And it's still a nasty pitch, but it doesn't look like it has the teeth, the visual, the power behind it. And he's started to really hone in. The other piece that helps him with is it eliminates the glove side pull and the arm side miss, because all he's thinking about is down angle. So it's like you're either downhill to the knees in zone or you're strike to ball below. Yeah. And that allows him to play the north-south game with the fastball really well. Really, really well.
Yeah. And I think, obviously reducing the amount of walks is huge for him because he's always going to be about 1.5, 1.6 to the plate, which means he's going to have a big leg kick. He's going to be a little slower to the plate. And if he's walking guys, they're going to steal bases, and he's always going to be dealing with guys in scoring position where every little duck fart or whatever actually scores a run. So there's two ways you can deal with that. Either put it in a slide step or walk fewer people. So where are you at on that front with him?
He actually flashed a couple sub 1.4. We're not going to call it a slide step.
Nice.
It's a modified pickup. So it's essentially like a knee to knee.
Kind of a compromise between the two, maybe?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. It's like as if he had a bar across the top of his knees, that's the height that the other one can go to. Once you hit that, it's go. A lot of the issue with that, not issue, but what we were working through with that was figuring out how much counter to preset so that he's already in the positions he needs to get to, that he gets in his load with the big leg kick where he has time to flip the pelvis, counter in. He's able to do that from the preset position. So now it's just up and go. And now all of a sudden, too, it eliminates any thought of the delivery. It's just up, down, forward. Simple.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay, Emmet Sheehan, we know all about him. Can you kind of briefly hit on him? We know the ride and run. It's actually a four-seam. It has two-seam tendencies, the change-up, the slider, all that. Take us through him.
Yeah, we didn't have him for too long, which for him, I'm super glad we didn't.
Yeah, right.
One of the most special fastballs that you could imagine. And it's one of those that you might watch the game on TV and just be like, man, why are they missing the fastball? And when you see it in person, it's like, man, how do you hit that fastball? And he came, and I think when he really put it together was at Sacramento. I'm pretty sure it was 6 perfect. Yes, it was 6 perfect. I think he punched 12. Yeah. And he just abused a pretty good Sacramento lineup with a fair amount of big league hitters. And that's when it was like, okay, everything's starting to feel like I'm ready to go. I feel like normal me. The slider was in a good spot. Changeup was in a good spot. He flipped in a couple curveballs when he needed to, and then just dominated with the heater as usual. And he felt like normal Emmet and he looked like normal Emmet.
Got to be cool for you. Of course, 2022, he's coming off the shoulder injury, and you got to coach him at the high A level. You got to see him in AAA coming back off of a major league stint. How cool is it to see you just from a mentality and confidence perspective? Hey, this is what Emmet Sheehan looked like in 2022 as a guy who didn't know what the major leagues was like versus the Emmet Sheehan now. It's a different way they carry themselves, isn't it?
100%. And I think a lot of that is a testament to the things he went through to get to the point that he's at. He battled through a lot in 2022, and that made him a different dude in 2023. And then he goes through the injury and fights his way back. And now all of a sudden you see him, it's like he's matured in a lot of ways. He knows what makes him good. And it's just a really cool thing to watch him go through this whole process front, like draft day to now as a World Series champ, a contributing factor to that team is really cool.
Two guys that are Rule 5 eligible. One of them has already been taken in the Rule 5. He has major league experience. He's returned last year from the Angels. Immediately, you guys went to getting back to his old mechanics, old sequencing. It hit right off the bat. Talking about Garrett McDaniels. And then he got sick. I think he had COVID for a while and like pitched 2 or 3 times. And those were literally like the only 2 outings that he didn't do great in, right? So other than his sick outings, his COVID outings, he was absolutely spot on. So talk about him and Nick Nastrini.
Yeah, Garrett is a special left-handed arm. He can spin the heck out of a baseball. Yeah. And there's not a lot of guys that you pair that with a really good sinker. So the mix is unique. The release is unique. And once he got back into a couple of delivery pieces that I think he got away from a little bit, we saw the velo tick back up. It probably took about 3 weeks, which is probably about 3 weeks longer than Garrett wanted for the slider to get back to form. But that was part of the thing that was so frustrating for him was he's like, it still doesn't feel right. It still doesn't feel right. And the second that things got to, where they were in Tulsa for the 2 outings to finish last year in Great Lakes, it was pretty evident. Like he smiled a little bit and it was like, all right, we're in the right spot.
Dude, that last outing of 2024 in Wichita, I was there. My wife and I, wow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And part of the key to that is like the delivery pieces he needs to keep the velo in that 93, 95 range also lines up with him being able to spin 2 different breaking balls. Yeah. So that when he kind of lost a couple of the positional things, he also lost a little bit of the arsenal. So it took a little bit of time to separate the 2 breaking balls, get the 2-seam back where he wanted it. And, I think he's really happy with where he finished, and he's extremely hungry to go prove that, this is just a blip on the radar for him.
Yeah. So where are we at with Nick Nastrini? I know that we got him back about halfway through last year. He probably, I don't know. I assume he spent the rest of the time at the complex. Where are we at with him?
Yeah, he had a tough break because we get him back. We're super fired up. Talking to him, I'm hearing from Rob, I'm seeing the video of him throwing live BPs, and he looks really good. And then he came up in his first outing. He had a little bit of a back issue. So he had to go back to Arizona. So it was a bummer the way that it played out, but we're obviously fired up about what he's capable of doing. We're really fired up about what he did in Arizona in between. And we wish it was a little bit different with the back and what he went through, because he worked real hard to get to the spot he was and just didn't quite get to showcase it yet, but it's coming.
3 guys that I love watching pitch. Ryan Sublette, I love the fact that he's 3/4, but yet he keeps his hand behind the ball, so he gets the best of all worlds. Logan Boyer, who definitely looks the part. He's had periods to where he was totally dominant. Then the spin doctor, Antonio Knowles. I was messing with Antonio. That jump from AA to AAA is going to be a fun challenge for you. So can you talk about those 3?
Yeah, Subby put together a really solid year. He had some great stretches. I think one of the most beneficial things he did this year was bring back the 2-seam. The slot started to creep up a little bit. We started to lose a little bit of power because the timing was thrown a little bit off with the throw arm. And when we reintroduced the 2-seam, he naturally got the slot a little bit slower back to where he naturally moves from. So that's when we started to see 2-seam, 4-seam cutter in a really good changeup.
Yeah.
And for him, it's just being able to move counts. How early can you get to 2 strikes? Can we race to 2 strikes right out of the gate? The cutter became a weapon for him. Partially, I think it's because the two-seam played off of it. So he had two-seam cutter going this way, and he had four-seam changeup working this way. He just had two mirror effects. So what he can do to hitters is pretty special. It's just about filling the count early. And he flashed what he's capable of a lot of times this year, which was awesome to see. Logan, great to see him finish the way he did. We call him Freight Train, and it's the most fitting. I for him. You know, he's got a ride cut fastball and it's a cutter, but it's a power slider. And so what he went to navigate hitters with here, I think this was the year he learned the most about his arsenal in terms of, okay, I've never faced hitters like this. I can outstuff guys, but the approaches become a little more difficult. So what we did, we ended up adding a two-seam. And if you were to look in isolation at the pitch movement, you would not think that is a two-seam fastball. But off of a 20-0 fastball, something giving you 12 inches arm side is going to be perceived as something very, very, very difficult to handle. So it's kind of like what Tyler Glasnow did last year. It's just a little wrinkle, but what it does is righties, all they would do is pull him close because everything ride cuts away from him. So now all of a sudden you flash something that's moving into you, perceived moving into you off that, they have to cover the whole plate. Lefties, they'd push you away. So we ripped a couple two seams to lefties, and it was like a 15-12 little runner, and he got a lot of swings out of zone because they're hunting away with everything moving in.
Cool.
So once he started to play with the perception of how hitters wanted to navigate him, he started to put together some really good outings, 0 after 0, and just started chipping away. But it goes back to what we said, is the identity of Logan Boyer is the fastball cutter.
Yeah, no doubt.
No doubt. That will always be the identity of how he gets people out, and it's just, what adjustment do we make? It was a two-seam and a curveball to support that, and he finished on a really strong note as well.
Don't forget about my boy, Antonio Knowles, the spin doctor, the master of Key West.
Seeing AK as well make it up to AAA.
No tones? It's AK?
It's AK. It's always AK.
Okay. Nice.
You know, he's the guy that it's like you start meeting the draft class, you're in spring training. It's like, what's my best pitch? Slider. And it's like, everybody says it's the slider. And then you see him throw it, and it's like, that is your best pitch.
Yeah, that's your best pitch.
How often do you throw it? A lot. Good.
Really good.
And I think for him, you know, the pitching group in Tulsa, Duran and Vasky did an incredible job preparing him. The cutter and the gyro slider became extremely important to him because he has huge moving two-seam, huge moving sweeper, and there was nothing to bridge the gap. And it was what he bridged the gap with that elevated the other two. And if he didn't have those weapons, I think it would have been tough managing counts for him. But those allowed him to move counts early, expand the zone with these, and it actually helped set him up to finish left-handed hitters, which was something he was focused on when he got here. So it was like, all right, we can either lean on something with more power, or we have to get something with a little more depth. And the gyro slider with a little bit of power helped him a lot.
Very cool. And it's also very interesting hearing you talk how creative this is. I always talk about there's nobody more creative in the game than David Anderson. No doubt about that. I will go to my grave with that. So hearing you talk about, hey, some guys like Robo needed to add a back pitch. They needed to go front to back. They needed to actually reduce velo, have a bigger velo gap. Then other pitchers like Antonio Knowles had the gap, but they needed a bridge pitch. I mean, it's just so cool to hear you talk about individuals like that.
Yeah, and I think the key piece to that is understanding it's like, if you want to make an adjustment, there's two pieces to it. Is one, what problem am I trying to solve?
Yes.
And two, if I'm not trying to solve a problem, better, you know, there is always a trade-off. So it's like, what trade-off am I making to add this? Sometimes the trade-offs are all positive, and that's a green go.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, but there's nothing that's done in isolation. You know, it's like you add this certain pitch type, and you're prepared for a potential arm slot change. You're prepared for a potential fastball shape change because we're starting to get the hand to move in different ways. And you just have to be really forward thinking and selective about what adjustments you want to make with a guy and why, and be prepared to adjust on the fly, because at the end of the day, it's these guys' careers.
Yes,
and
right.
they're incredibly smart. They have a very, very good idea of what they want to do. And we're not going to do something with a guy that they're not fully bought into.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very productive and proactive two-way street, the way we go about things.
It's so individualized in the day and age. Hey, you like to have an organizational philosophy. Hey, yeah, we like the high riding four seams. We like whatever. And the Dodgers do have a little bit of that, but it's just so individualized in this organization. It's amazing. There's no cookie cutter to it.
It is. And that goes all the way from strength and conditioning program to the medical staff and prep and recovery. There's nearly nothing that a player does in our org that isn't completely tailored towards them.
Yeah, it's amazing. Dave Anderson, it's been a wonderful honor to get to catch up with you again. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Casey.
It's a great day to be a Dodger.
Always.